Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I'm going over a super early fun edition of Unchained. This is one of my personal favorite decks, although it has kind of got drifted out of competitive play over the last couple of years, slowly and steadily. Power creep kind of nipping at its heels, and then finally overcame it, I think, with Power of the Elements, and even arguably before that. But we have the new support revealed. Very excited to see how this deck moves post Duelist Nexus. This is again, super early build. I'm not going to take too much from this. I'm not going to throw this at you as gospel. This is the de facto best build you can do with this deck. Take it with a grain of salt. This is early build. Take some inspiration from it. Build off from there. Find out what you think is reasonably going to work from there. And also keep in mind some of these choices may change depending on the current metagame. I mean, if certain decks are better or worse depending on the format, obviously some choices will change as well from there. But without further ado, let's get into it. I want to talk about some of this stuff because there's a lot of really cool interactions here, and I also have a really cool replay just to show you some of the overall power the deck has now going forward. So, starting off here, we start with the first thing that I think may arguably be the most interesting thing of this new deck list, which is Tour Guide of the Underworld. This card had always been theorized in this deck, but never actually saw a ton of play in it because it didn't have a great payoff, really. And now we have a Link 2 that takes any 2 Fiend monsters, and so Tour Guide becomes a 1-card Link 2 for 2 Fiends, and then gets you another plus on top of that, and that's very important. You'll see that in the replay. But yeah, very cool card. This card can mainly go for Fiendish Rhino Warrior, or it can go for any of the other level 3 Fiends, so that can be Aruha, Rakia, or Sarama. And it's also mentioned that Sangan is another potential target here. I theorized that as well. I ended up not putting it in this list, but it's something we'll talk about when we get to the end anyway. So Fiendish Rhino Warrior, when it's sent to the grave, can just send any Fiend from deck to grave. That's very important with the new guy because he generically gets you a plus on when he's sent to grave. Very good. From there, we have a pretty standard lineup-ish. 3 Aruha, 3 Rakia, only 2 Sarama. I know some people play more than 2 Sarama, but I felt like normal summoning Rakia... Well, Aruha is not even a normal summon at all, but if you have to, it's not bad, because if you have any way to pop it, you're good. Rakia can pop other stuff, so Rakia is a better normal summon than Aruha. And then Sarama is by far the worst normal summon because it requires you to already have an Unchained card in grave for it to be really doing much at all, aside from just being a target for you to pop and then get a plus or get a summon off of it from there. So by far, Sarama to me was the least important to have at 3, especially if we have another really powerful set of normal summons in Tour Guide. It's also important to note that I think there's a world where we say, you know what, Tour Guide is very powerful as a 1-card starter, but you know what? I find myself losing to Hand Traps, Ash Blossom, Veiler, Imperm. I do think that is one of the deck's issues at this point, is it is a little bit fragile to those types of basic Hand Traps, honestly. And so if those are very popular in the format, I do think there's a world where we stem away from any normal summon at all, really, and just play like old classic Unchained. We can still get to multiple interruptions, but we're not as susceptible to those types of hand traps, and I think that's very important for the deck. So we'll keep an eye on that. From there, we move to the new guys. We have 3 copies of Sharvara. This is the new level 6 guy. He's insane. He's a quick effect to pop a card to summon himself, and then when he's generically sent to grave from deck, from field, from hand, however, he sets an Unchained spell or trap straight from deck. Phenomenal. This gets you to escape so much more consistently. So we're ending on an extra Trident so much more often. Very important. And just a very good card in the grind. Again, another reason why I cut down on Sarama was because sometimes in grindier games with Unchained, you can end up going through your entire deck. But now that we have like 2 new monsters to the main deck where we're just playing more copies of Unchained cards, period, now, we don't need to max out on all the little ones as much anymore. From there, I moved to 1 copy of Unchained Soul, Abominable Unchained Soul. It is arguable that this card could be a 2 of in the deck, because even if you go through 1 turn 1 just to get it engraved, so you can reborn it off of something like a Chamber, maybe it's still worth it to play 1 in the 2 in the main, so that way you could still have 1 in deck to summon off of, you know, any of the small ones being destroyed. That is something to keep in mind. 1 Shyama, this is the other new one. Very cool card. From grave, it can destroy any cards you control to reborn itself. and then but goes on the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn, and then it can destroy a card you control, destroy a spell or trap card on the field. So that gives you extra ways to destroy your own stuff. It gives you extra ways to put another level 6 body on the field. It's just a good extender. It's just a one-off. I don't see anybody playing more than one of this card, but it's a good one-off to play that helps you extend in certain scenarios. And then one, Unchained Soul Disaster, still probably overall the biggest brick in the deck. He's a pain in the ass, but we only have to play one of them now. There were builds in the past where you felt like power-wise you needed the second one over the course of a duel. But I think with all the extra options we have now with the new support, one at most, there's even going to be an argument to play none of this card, I bet. But I'm gonna mess with one for now. Basic hand traps, triple ash, 2 Veil or 2 Bell. Not going to spend too much time on this. Like I said at the beginning of the video, depending on where the format is when this stuff actually comes out, these cards will change. Not going to throw too much investment into these specific tech cards at the moment. So whatever. 3 Abominations Prison. Of course, this is super staple in the deck. This card is awesome. 3 copies of Prosperity, the only other spell we play. I think you probably have to play either Prosperity or Extravagance. I think if you want to play a budget build, you can definitely get away with Extravagance, but I do think with some of the extra options we have now with the new cards, I do want to mess with Prosperity over Extrav, just because there's some other cards we can take advantage of potentially in the deck with the new cards. So I like Prosp in that realm, and also our cards are just generally a little bit more powerful now with the new cards, so we don't have to rely as much on that +1 from Extrav. So I do think Prosperity is definitely an option. And then finishing out the main deck is our Trap Suite: 3 Escape, 3 Chamber, and 3 Imperm. Nothing too crazy here, I think. I think these will stay as staple 3-ofs in the deck, even though they're traps. They're very good traps. This one's a great follow-up that, also if you're reborning something like your Unchained Soul is an Eruption, or even reborning something like a Soul of Rage becomes an Eruption in a late game scenario as well. And then Escape just being a Trident is really nice because you're floating off of it no matter what. So very, very good option. So this is the main deck I have right now. Somewhat streamlined. I think some people are going to have some live twin stuff, some not tour guide stuff in here. There is, like I said, an argument where maybe we go more pure and we lean off the tour guide stuff, make room for a couple extra tech options. We can end up playing, 2 to 3 more, maybe 2 to 4 more slots that are just, 2 to 4 more hand traps, 2 to 4 more, Book of Moons, cards like that. Those evenly matches, those cards that help us go second. But obviously we'll have to feel out the format and how the deck actually runs to get there. But these still feel like really good options out the gate. Moving to the extra deck. 2 copies of the new card, Unchained Soul King Yama. This card is amazing. On special summon, it adds any monster. Most of the time this is adding either Aruha, Shavara, or if you already have one or both of those, I guess I could see myself adding an Abominable Unchained Soul just to be kind of like a hand trap at that point. But very good. And then even from grave, if any card you control is destroyed, you can banish this card to summon any fiend from grave, then destroy a card you control. So from there, it can get you follow-up as well as a potential interruption. So very, very good. This card reminds me almost of Coral Triangle from Marine Cess. Gets you a card for your engine and then also offers you some solid follow-up in grave. I like that. Soul of Rage. This card is just as important as it was before, essentially. We want to end on this card as often as possible because it's one of our few interruptions that does not destroy. But it has its weaknesses, but it's still a very important piece. But I still love this card. I don't think you need 3, but I think 2 is probably important. News Reporter or Muckraker from the Underworld. This card's very cool. This gives you the option to potentially make this to reborn any Link monster that's a fiend from grave. So you could potentially just reborn an Unchained Abomination, reborn an Unchained Soul of Anguish, right? Like any of these guys, or even just a Unchained Soul of Rage. Why make a Rage when you could make a Muckraker and reborn a Rage and have both on field, right? Like you just get extra value off this card. I think it's a solid one of that will come up here and there, but it's an easy Prosperity or Extrav hit either way, so it's fine. 1 Dark the Dark Charmer could come up. Half your deck is dark. Most of your deck is actually dark, so it's fine. But playing second, I mean, especially if you open Tour Guide going second against a deck that maybe puts something pretty powerful that's dark and grave, you go Tour Guide into Rhino Warrior, link them off for dark. So that way you're going to be able to then get Rhino Warrior to dump Shavara to get a trap, but then also like go after your opponent's back row. It's a way to like kind of bait out negates while also getting like a plus in the same, you know, in the same play with only one card worth of you know, input into the play, which is very cool. Then you have the threes, the Anguish. I think you only need one, maybe two of this. Maybe there's a way to wiggle around the extra, can play a second copy of this, but I think one might be fine. I have two unicorns here. Again, maybe the one of these unicorns becomes the second Anguish, but with stuff like Muckraker and the fact that Shavara gets us to Unchained Chamber way more consistently, means we're able to like get an Anguish that's engraved back way easier. So, you know, it's not as important to me. But Unicorn's very good. Obviously, getting the spin and the steal off of Rage is very important. Unchained Abomination. This card just seals up duels a lot of the time. You make him, and he's making 1 to 2 removals into like 3 or 4, which is insane. Underworld Goddess. You can also potentially make this card off of Rage, I believe. Right? It's any Dark Link monster, and it says it has to be a... Maybe it doesn't have to be a Fiend, but I think something else might lock into Fiends. But whatever. Oh, no, this one's a light. So you can't make it off of Soul of Rage, but you can make it on a later turn. And I feel like for a deck like this that has nothing but targeting and destruction removal, outing a big, scary boss monster with big protection could be very crucial. So might as well play her. I think she's worth it. One, Wave High King Caesar from DDDs. You make her using the 2 new level 6s. Or here, I said her, but it's probably he. He's a double negate, essentially a double, oh shoot, what's the tier limit name? Rule Kalos? It negates any card with an effect that would special summon a monster. But it's not once per turn, so you can pretty much negate 2 cards that special summon a monster. That's very powerful. He's also 2800. Very powerful piece to the end board, potentially. And then I have Stone King Darius, King Deus Machinex, and Zeus. You know, all the basic Unchained guys are level 3s. But also, I think if you're going to play the Tour Guide package, this becomes even more interesting. Because if your opponent's going to, like, big brain themselves into thinking, like, okay, I'll let them summon this. But, like, if I have a way to, like, shut them down, I've got them in a tough spot. But if you just go, if they let Tour Guide resolve, then you go Tour Guide, grab Rhino Warrior, make Darius, make Machinex, attack with a 3k beater. You've not activated any effects since Tour Guide, and now you have a double activation Zeus. And you can kind of like outplay your opponent that way just by playing these. So I do think these could be pretty clutch in those types of scenarios. So yeah, that's it for the extra deck. Moving on to the couple of interesting cards. Like I said, you could play more Abominable Unchained Soul. I probably wouldn't end up playing 3 ever, but maybe 2 is a thing. Eris is interesting, Archfiend Eris, because this is a level 3 fiend that could be summoned off of Tour Guide as a separate target from Rhino Warrior. When she's sent to the graveyard by card effect, oh, I'm sorry, she has to be sent by card effect, so this actually doesn't work. Never mind, screw this card. I actually thought that worked differently. Skarm. Skarm is interesting. It's only going to get you follow-up, right? But the problem is it only adds a level 3 Dark Fiend, so it would have to add you either Sarama or like another Tour Guide, and that's pretty much it. So I think this card kind of falls short in its actual utility. It's just a little too slow and specific. Octhros, little bit same kind of situation. When he's sent from field to grave, he adds a level 8 Fiend exactly. Only level 8 Fiends, and as you can see in our deck list right now, the only 2 targets would be Abominable Unchained Soul. Not a bad target, for sure. Like I said, he can kind of work as a de facto hand trap in hand. And the other one would be Soul of Disaster. But this card's a complete brick in hand, so we don't want this at all. So there's really only one good card. I mean, I guess you could play one copy of Lava Golem in the main and just, oh, okay, I search it, so now your opponent knows even if they break your board, you're going to have a Lava Golem for him. But even that is like, meh. It feels so meh. Maybe there's a world where we get another 8 where this card becomes crazy. I think this card will come up down the line somewhere in some deck, but maybe it's not this deck. Sangan is the other main one that I think is interesting. Summoning Sangan instead of Fiendish Rhino Warrior. Yes, it means Rhino's not dumping Shavara to get its set effect, but we could drop Sangan, and then you have the choice of either grabbing any of our monster hand traps, essentially, right? Ash, Veiler, or Bell, or any Ghost Girl, or any low attack hand trap, or it gets you follow-up, right? It can grab you Tour Guide. It can also grab you, I believe, any of the other level 3 Unchained monsters. So yeah, follow-up or a hand trap, I actually think is pretty nice, especially for a deck where most of its interruptions are Escape with the pop. Soul of Rage, a quick link, so it's just like a target a monster and remove it from the field, quick effect. It has no negates, right? So being able to search a Veiler, being able to search an Ash Blossom, search a Ghost Spell, having an extra, not just interruption, but also a different type of interruption, specifically for a deck like this, where its interruptions tend to be kind of more of the same. Remove a monster, pop a card. You know, adding a negate element to that could be really, really crucial. So I could see Sangan seeing play here. But obviously, you know, we're not 100% on that. And the last things to note, I think, are the live twins. I've seen people already messing with live twin builds. To me, like, live twins are just like Tour Guide, but I think have a little bit less synergy, actually, overall than Tour Guide, just because Tour Guide does get you to the link 2, and, like, I don't know. No, I mean, there's a world where it still works, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on them. They themselves are Cybers, so they're not Fiends at all, so that doesn't help. If your opponent can keep you from getting to more copies is not great at all. So, I don't know. I think there is some merit to it, but I, at this point, am not expecting it to be the most popular build. In my opinion, I think it'll be a more pure variant, where it's either a pure variant that does play a Tour Guide package, just because the deck doesn't have a great normal summon otherwise, or it's just a completely pure variant where you X on Tour Guide completely and you play more copies of like utility cards. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there. Let's finish up here by taking a look at one quick replay of the where did I put this? Oh, there we go. Of the new stuff. So here we go. This is literally a 1-card combo. All you have to do is pretty much be on a Tour Guide and a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and this allows you to do this in an Unchained deck, all off of 1 card. It's pretty powerful. So here we go. We're going to normal summon Tour Guide. She is going to summon Fiendish Rhino Warrior from deck, of course. We're going to make the new Unchained link 2, Yama, and then we're going to send the new guy, Shavarna. He's going to go ahead and set us a escape in the same chain that we are adding off of Soul King Yama. I would probably chain block Soul King Yama if I could here, just because, you know, on field, you know, him resolving seems a little more important. We'll grab Aroha since we've already used the effect of Shavara. You could grab Shavara if you wanted. It honestly doesn't really change that much, but I think we want the float effect of Aroha here, so I think that's a little more important. We'll use Aroha to pop the back row to summon himself, use the back row to summon out Sarama. Sarama's going to reset escape and pop Aroha, again, triggering Aroha to summon from deck. We're going to get the other level 6 Shiyama just to get him in rotation. Then from there, we're going to use Shiyama plus the Yama Link 2 to make Unchained Soul of Rage. It's very important that the new Soul King Yama has Unchained Soul in his name, so he can be used to make Rage. That's our most important end board piece usually. So we already have Escape plus Rage, and now from here we're going to use Shiyama's effect Engrave, popping the Sarama to summon himself, and then we'll use Sarama to summon from deck again another copy of Sharvara to get another 6 on board. And then from here, I think we're just going to overlay these 2 guys into DDD Wave High King Caesar. So literally just off of 1 card, 1 Tour Guide, we end on the quick effect to link off with an opponent's monster with Unchained Soul of Rage. We end on DDD Wave High King Caesar. He is a double Rule Kalos negate, very powerful, and an escape, which is a Dryden effect. So we've got 4 interruptions here, and I think it's important to note that we also have Soul King Yama Engrave, and he says if any card you control is destroyed, you can banish this card to special summon a fiend from hand or grave, and then destroy 1 card you control. So you could do something like Reborn Sarama, pop Sarama. Boom, Sarama summons, you know, something else for follow-up, whatever you want. You could pop Shavara, he sets a card, whatever, right? Summons and pops, it's fine. So you've even got follow-up in that regard there. So all off of 1 card is pretty nice. This was pretty much just a showcase to kind of show you the Tour Guide package more than anything, but I wanted to throw it out there for you. So apologies if this video went a little longer than I kind of anticipated it, but I hope I covered everything that I wanted to here. Again, one final iteration before we get out of here. This is a super early build. Don't take this 100% as truth. definitely mess around with it. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. Are there some cards you think I should mess around with that I didn't actually include in my early build here that you think are worth it? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this down below. Early builds, early testing on these types of really exciting decks. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.